See here. All right. Let's see, it's a little bit after 3. If we're 1 or 2 more minutes and see who shows up. I'm on both Zoom as well as Facebook. So I will be recording this and you'll be able to see the PowerPoint on my website, which is my name, taylormountain.com. And I will also upload it to YouTube so that it is shown there. But otherwise, for those of you that are on Facebook and looking at this, you'll get the just verbal version for me for now. But if you have any questions, please put them in the comments and I will be able to answer them either throughout the presentation or shortly afterwards. So we will get started. All right, so hello everyone. My name is Taylor and this is Mastering Conflict Resolution, Empowering Skills for Effective Communication and Problem Solving. So we will be looking at various aspects of what it means to have effective conflict resolution. There are tips, there are tricks and tools, and we will be talking about that today. So just so you know a little bit more about me, again, my name is Taylor Mountain. I am also called Taye, and I am the founder of Tailored Living. So I do empowerment coaching and therapy. I offer one-on-one coaching, groups, webinars like this, and other workshops. So if you do need to reach me, you can check out my website, which is taylormountain.com. And the thing about it is my name has an E at the end. So please keep that in mind. So Taylor with an E and then Mountain, my last name, or you can email me at yourtailoredliving@gmail.com. Now, what we'll be looking at are the definitions of conflict and conflict resolution, but also understanding a little bit of why conflict resolution can be so, well, actually addressing conflicts can be so challenging. So then it's a little bit harder to have any kind of conflict resolution if you're avoiding it. We'll look at 3 different tools. So making a list, effective communication skills, and compassionate communication, as well as 3 confidence boosters or tips to help you along the way. All right, so what is conflict? This is just a general definition that is online, and it says a struggle or clash between opposing forces or a battle. It is a state of opposition between ideas, interests, or more. It is a disagreement or a controversy. So then you have conflict resolution. It is the process of ending a dispute and reaching an agreement that satisfies all parties involved. All right, so we have the conflict, which is a clash between opposing forces, different ideas, different interests. And then the conflict resolution part is the process of ending a dispute, ending the clash between opposing forces, between ideas, and reaching an agreement that satisfies all parties involved. Now, in a perfect world, we'd be able to come up with the solutions. It would be just easy to say like, hey, I have this issue. I would really like to have the meeting at this time. And the other person's like, you know what? That's great. I can do that too. Look, and so then it's just all resolved and everything is great, right? But we know that that doesn't exactly happen that way. So that's where having certain skills can be helpful, because there can be resistance, there can be misunderstandings, and ultimately in the end you just want everybody to get on the same page, move forward, not have to have any issues like this before or like continuing. So that is the goal for today, to just understand a little bit more about how conflicts get to where they are and then how to resolve them. All right, so something else that I saw that I thought was a very helpful quote. It says, since conflict is an essential part of being human, effective conflict resolution is not designed to avoid disagreements. So there's always going to be some difference. If everybody was the same, life would be boring. Everything would just, yeah. I mean, there's so many ways that this can go, but there is conflict. There's different ideas. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it adds to what makes people great, people dynamic, new contributions, creativity, and all of that. And so we will just need to know how to address it in a way that is effective, helpful, healthy, and that'll help us get through these disagreements that are going to come up regardless. So I want you to take a second and think about, why is addressing conflict so hard? You've probably encountered many conflicts. It might have been with your siblings growing up. It may have even been with your parents growing up. It may be in work. It could be in your relationship. It could even be with friends. So just think about some of those reasons for why addressing conflict is so hard. I would say for me, there's this aspect of having autism that, at least for me, it's like, if there are rules, there is authority, there's kind of structure, and I am not necessarily like in that higher part of the structure, I worry about it. I know that there is respect that is supposed to be there. I am not sure what I can say sometimes, and so I'm overthinking things and worried about just how things are going to go. So that is something that I've had to work on, of just keeping in mind the reason for why I'm addressing whatever the conflict is, and knowing too, there have been successful outcomes in the past. So let's see what some of the reasons may be. Oops, went back to the other slide. All right, let's see here. We have previous attempts have not gone well. There are strong emotions involved. Think about your significant other or your best friend, and you have been friends with them for years. There's a lot of history there. Speaking of which, there's more history to the issue at hand. It may not be just about getting the wrong food. There's probably other things in there of, maybe it's happened many times before. The person didn't really address it. So now you're just thinking that whoever it is just always going to get something wrong. So there's history to it. There may be a fear of rejection or abandonment. You know, you bring up something in your romantic relationship. If your partner isn't really there to want to resolve whatever the issue is, maybe they just don't agree. Maybe the conflict is the fact that you want kids, your partner doesn't. That's a big conversation to have. And if your partner is really just like, yeah, there's no changing, I just really have never wanted kids, or I really want to have kids, then that is a pretty good reason for a relationship to not continue, because you have very different needs and wants and desires out of your relationship. So there's a fear of what can happen, or a breakup or a rejection. You may not have the most effective skills, and that is okay. It's all trial and error. It is making sure that you're getting out what you need to. Sometimes it might not be the right time to do it. So that's where you're like, oh, okay, I didn't do that right. I need to figure out like what to do next. So you just may not have those skills just yet, but you're here. And so that can be a step. Then there might be repeated patterns or cycles of communication. Um, I am a marriage and family therapist, so I look at family and what we've learned from them. So maybe you just saw that no one really talked about emotions, talked about an issue, they swept it under the rug. So how do you know how to really talk about an issue other than maybe getting upset, or walking away, doing the silent treatment, those types of things, which kind of goes into the next point of unhealthy behaviors that prevent the conversation. So you're just used to that happening. And so therefore the pattern hasn't really changed. It's still the same unhealthy, ineffective pattern. Just a side note, like there was a client of mine who mentioned that what they saw growing up was there would be conflict, there would be yelling, and then the adults of the house would disappear. They would leave. So all you know is that there's an issue. To talk about it, not going to happen. So you leave. And that's what they ended up doing when they became an adult in their own relationship. It was like, hey, this is a lot going on. Not sure exactly how to deal with it. So what did they do? They ended up just leaving the house, leaving the relationship. So some of these things are repeated patterns that we may have picked up from our family members. It could have been in just other relationships that you have learned this. Again, the unhealthy behaviors that prevent conversation. So that could be the yelling, the insults. It could be just walking out, not really saying anything. That's both just leaving out the door. It could be just going into another room, but not saying anything. So it's like, all right, I'm just going to disappear. You don't actually say anything. But also, if you're like, hey, I'm just so overwhelmed right now. I need to take space. I'm going to go walk around the block. Okay, that's not so bad. You're letting somebody know what's actually happening. You're letting them know that you are not feeling so hot and things are a little overwhelming. And now you just need to go in and take a walk, get some fresh air, breathe, think about everything. That's very different from someone just walking out the door and then who knows what's actually going to happen. So some of these unhealthy behaviors can just be tweaked just slightly and it's actually fine. And then lastly, there's like the struggle to admit fault or the role in the issue. So whether it is ego or something else, it is going to be challenging to now go into a conversation where it's like you walked out the door, you didn't come back for days. So then you go in there and then your partner's like, well, I wanted to talk about it, but you left. And so I didn't know what to do. And then we couldn't talk about it. So you'd have to say like, I'm so sorry. I left. I didn't let you know what was happening at that moment. Okay. So you'd have to apologize for that. But if you're not ready to do that, it's going to be really hard to have any resolution to issues, conflicts, tough conversations. All right, so we've identified some reasons for why conflict can be hard. And I want you to keep that in mind of like, you've had other conversations, they were tough, they could have been conflicts. Maybe you keep coming back to the same issue over and over again, but you're here to learn some tools so that the next time this comes up, whether it is with your partner, with a coworker or colleague, your friend, possibly even your kid, depending on like how old they are, um, going to give you some of the tools. So the 3 tools that we'll talk about, as I mentioned before, are making a list, then looking at effective communication skills, and then also looking at compassionate communication. So the first part, making a list. It's kind of easy. It is something that you might do when you are preparing for a presentation like this. You got to see what it is that you need to do, what you got to talk about, what the goal is of the conversation. So keep in mind, what is the purpose? You're having this conversation because probably something isn't going very well. You may have a different idea of what you want. It could really be like you are the 2 people that are working on this particular project. So the 2 of you need to get on the same page. So the purpose is to come up with an answer, a resolution, to make sure that this project is moving forward. It could be that you just love your partner so much, but you're so tired because you keep hitting the same conflict over and over again, and it doesn't seem like things are changing. It could also maybe just be that there's some boundary that you want to have with whoever it is, from, let's see, making sure that you have some time to yourself, and that closing the door means that you are busy. For instance, if you're at work or something like that. It could be that it's something that you need, that it's like, hey, you just really want the person to listen to you. They don't necessarily need to solve things, fix anything, but just you want them to listen. So you're bringing up these needs, these concerns, because you want there to be peace, happiness, calm, all of that. Also, you need to identify what you want to accomplish. So it is helpful, especially if the other person's like, okay, well, why do we need to talk? You're saying, you're like, I really want to figure out how we can figure out how to get this project done in a week, because I'm going on vacation in 2 weeks, then you're going on vacation the week afterwards. So like, we need to figure out how to get this done in the next 7 days. Also, you may need to create some ground rules. I do that with my clients if it's couples, because there, again, are already so many emotions that might be wrapped up in whatever the conversation is. So it's a, hey, if you find something that might be a little bit hurtful or mean, then maybe it means that you're going to stop. You're going to take 5 minutes to breathe, something like that. It could even just be that you are like, if you start yelling, I can't really have that conversation, because receiving yelling, being on the receiving end of that, can be really scary or frustrating. It's also ineffective and unhealthy. So maybe it is a thing of that. I'll also add that sometimes people just naturally get loud, but they're not necessarily upset. So that person may say, please just know, I may get worked up. My tone, my voice might go up, but I'm actually not like angry. It's just I'm having feelings, and that is okay. So you may just want to clarify some things beforehand, so that everyone is at least in a place of understanding if something isn't going the way that you think it will. And then lastly, it is checking in regularly to make sure everyone is being heard. So you may not have necessarily wanted to be the leader of this conversation, but you are, especially if you're the one that brought it up. you really want to see some change happen, right? So check in, and we'll talk about that in the compassionate communication, that you will just need to say, hey, just want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. Did you say this? How are you feeling? Are we on the same page? Okay, let's move forward. Also with that, it could be helpful if things start to go off in different tangents and you're thinking of this other thing that might be related but not directly to what's happening right there. So it could just be like, hey, I hear that you were talking about that situation from before. Is okay if we talk about that another time, because I know we haven't talked about it. Whatever it is. So you might be the one that has to navigate things, have some control over what's going on. All right. Now, here are some effective communication skills that you've probably heard before, might need a little reminder, might be the thing that you need to work on. So some tips for effective communication skills, or things that you need to either look out for, work on, is the active listening. So it's that listening to understand versus like, I need to make my point. I'm not going to let this thing happen again. But you're like, all right, there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of things that I want to say. But I'm here to hear this other person. Will I like what they're going to say? I don't know. You can comment afterwards about it. But you're trying to be present, really listening to hearing what they're saying, and not so much of giving this bullet point or this making a point. It means giving and taking feedback. Okay, if you're going to say to someone, hey, can you please stop raising your tone, they can easily say, okay, well, can you please not roll your eyes? It's fair. We all have our things that we do when we're frustrated, and that is fine. But if the other person is like, please don't roll your eyes. Also, I might have just done that. But in the conversation, if they're saying that, okay. So also that you have every right to give the thing that you may also need. So if they're going to give up their things of what might be helpful for them, you're also in a space to say the things that you need to. So there's that giving and taking feedback, along with you also have a voice, so you can say the things too, which we'll also look at a little bit later on. But in terms of effective communication skills, if you're going to give something out, you got to be open to receiving it too. There's also empathy. We don't know what is going on for the other person, even if you have been married to this person for many years. If it is your parent and you have known them for many years, we don't know what's really going on. So coming from a place of just really trying to understand and learn what's going on in that moment is always something helpful. If you can relate, even better. It's good to share that. Just make sure that the things that you're sharing are for the benefit of the other person and maybe not so much of yourself. So you're all just trying to get to a place where you can both feel good about sharing, and empathy helps create a safer space to share these things. There's respectfulness. So what's funny is this just reminds me of how people will say now of like the way of bringing up an issue or giving your real thoughts, is you're like, respectfully, I disagree. So we're not looking at that part, but rather, here's a human. We both have a disagreeing thought about whatever it is. And hopefully, if I am giving them respect, they can also give that back to me. Right? Responding to messages. So if there is something that is being shared verbally, maybe there's even like a text or something, but just giving some type of response to whatever that person is giving you. Okay. Then we have having volume and clarity in messages. So just make sure that you are speaking up. You have a very valid reason to voice whatever your concerns are. So it's okay to speak up, literally in terms of your volume, and then just make sure that you're trying to make things as clear as possible so that you understand what you're saying and they understand what you're saying, and you can kind of respond to it as you need to. Understanding nonverbal data. So if you, the person who is bringing up this concern, and the whole time you're just standing like this, or the eye rolling, maybe you're looking away, and not the kind of looking away where it's like you just have a hard time keeping the eye contact. That's a different conversation. But you're just like, I am not going to look at them because they don't deserve it, or whatever it is. That's not helpful either. So communication is all about still the nonverbals as much as it is the verbals, excuse me. So make sure that you're not in some type of position that can be off-putting. Again, the crossing of the arms, or eye rolls, or the sighs. Those are funny when I see it with couples and I bring it to their attention. They're like, yeah, I do that. That's important too. So making sure that you are aware of yourself in addition to your words. Let's see, building friendliness and confidence. Like, again, you're trying to bring this up for something positive to come out in the end. Hopefully that other person is trying to do the same. But if they're not, just do your best to be as friendly and kind and confident for yourself, so that when you look back at it, you know that you did everything that you needed to, and that you wanted to in a positive way. And it's just unfortunate for the other person that you were kind of talking to. And then also adapting your communication style to your audience. I'll say the best one is like an adult to a kid. There's a big difference. An adult to a teenager, still, there is a difference. So just kind of keeping in mind that you may have to explain things differently. You may have to, it could really be about softening your tone. It can be scary to certain people, even though you don't mean to. But if they may need that, okay, that's something to work on. That's not so bad. Okay. All right. So now we're looking at one of my favorite things to talk about, and it is called compassionate communication. So if you either watching on Zoom in this playback, or you are watching on good old Facebook, it might be good to get paper and pencil just to take note of this. So I worked at a practice in Chicago where the director, Michael Glavin, came up with this. It is called compassionate communication. It looks at the behaviors or your actions, the feelings, and the thoughts. Why? Because all three of those things come up when we especially start to have strong emotions, good or bad, they still come up. So first you have the action. So you're going to identify what is the issue and maybe like what the other person did. So let me see, for this example, we can talk about picking up the dog from the groomers and both of you like forgot. I don't know, this is random, so please work with me. All right, so we'd have the action of, when you forgot to pick up Roxy, my dog. Also, this never happened in real life, but when you forgot to pick up Roxy, that's the action. I felt hurt and disappointed. So you're looking at the feeling. And then you say the third part, which is the thought. You're like, so it made me think that you actually don't care about my dog, Roxy. All right. So we have the action that is addressed, and then how we felt and what our thoughts were. Okay. So breaking this down a little bit more with that first step, and you're looking at the action. This could be something that is positive or negative. You're just bringing the specific situation to light. So a positive example could be when you went and got the confetti birthday cake, my favorite. So when you got the confetti birthday cake, I felt loved and heard, and it made me think that you really care about me. Okay. This is something that I'm sharing with the other person, friend, family, partner, to reiterate something that is positive, something that is good, and just making it clear, like, that really made me feel loved and makes me think that you care about me. That's a positive thing to say to somebody, and I think that they would like to hear that. So this can also be for a positive situation. But say we're here in the middle of a conflict and we're trying to address it, right? So when you didn't pick up Roxy from the groomers, ... That's where we go to the second part. Again, about the feeling. I felt disappointed. I felt unheard, confused, because we talked about this for several days, whatever it is. So you have to identify the emotion. Now, one thing that I like to give to clients, either virtually or in physical form, is a lovely feelings wheel. So I'm going to show it to everybody just to see what it looks like. This one is a little sticker. So you can, put it in your wallet, whatever it is, and you can come back to it and you're like, I need to make sure that I'm describing how I actually feel. And you can just, look at this. But it's good to identify these emotions so that the person that you're talking to can have a just better understanding of what your experience is. So some of these feelings could be scared, excited, upset, disappointed, flustered, angry. Angry, I would say, is like that is a basic kind of emotion, but it does help to look a little bit deeper to understand what that is. So, for example, on this feelings wheel under anger, some of those feelings might be rage, annoyed, bitter, hateful, grumpy, aggressive, aggravated, peeved. So the clearer the emotion, I think the clearer it is to say just really what's going on, what your experience is for the other person that you're talking to. So in this case, my friend not picking up my dog from the groomers isn't as serious as say somebody cheated, or your teen stole money out of your purse. So it really just depends on how you're feeling, but it is good to look more into these emotions and try to give a more accurate expression of what you're experiencing. All right. And so then we get to that third part, and it is the thought. So just so you know, thoughts are not feelings. Feelings are not thoughts. Emotions are not thoughts. We like to put those together. I think it's just because we don't really talk about it. So it's okay if you weren't aware of that, but you're here to learn about how to be a little bit better at conflict resolution. So it's good to note that thoughts and feelings are two separate entities. All right. So if there's ever any time that you are like, it feels like, odds are you're going on the route of it actually being a thought. So an example is you're like, it feels like you are going to do this again. That's not an emotion. Feeling, emotion, put them together. All right. So instead, it is, I thought you were going to do it again. We don't know for sure. So in our example with Roxy at the groomers, I would say, I thought you, that we talked about this and cleared this up the night before. I thought that you don't necessarily care about my dog. He's very important to me. Okay. So that second part, we have the feelings, and the third part, we have the thoughts. They're two separate things. It takes a lot of practice. It's not something easy to remember, but just something to keep in mind. Now, just to recap, you have the action, the feeling, and the thoughts. In this particular example, I do use it for couples. So there may be the other person that I ask them to say, what did you hear your partner say? And they'll say, I heard them say that they didn't like that I didn't pick up the dog. It's close. It's not exactly it. So it's good to go through the steps again. I heard you say that when I didn't go and pick up Roxy from the groomers, you felt hurt, unheard, disappointed, and you thought that I didn't care about Roxy. Okay. So in this example too, in terms of the conflict resolution aspect of things, if that other person is giving you information about what they thought happened, how they were feeling, all of that, it might be good to say, friend, I heard you say that you were, that when I forgot to pick up Roxy, that you were hurt, kind of going through that again. So the other person may not know this, and that is okay, but it is good to still demonstrate this particular kind of communication skill. Okay. Now, after that, just check in, make sure that everybody heard what the other person was saying. If there was anything else that was missed, get that clarification. All right. Now, after that, after people have said their piece, it's good to validate some aspect of what was being said. All right. This may sound like I can understand that you were frustrated or disappointed in me for not picking up Roxy, because I would be a little frustrated and disappointed too if I was just left at the doctor's office and I didn't have a ride. That at least shows that there's some understanding, there's a connection that can be made for that other person. Again, you're creating kind of this safe space, adding some empathy that is there. Sometimes it's hard though to really validate the other person if you were really just like, no, that's not it. This isn't right. That's not what I was going for at all. And you might have to kind of reevaluate what the conversation is about. But if you're able to find just even some small point that the other person has said that you can understand, validate them. Okay. And then lastly, just remember to express your own thoughts and feelings about the situation and identify whatever the issue is, how you felt, and what it made you think. Okay. So this kind of goes back and forth between person A and person B to make sure that everybody is heard and understood. Looking at the situation, feelings and thoughts, validating the other person, clarifying whatever was said to make sure that everyone's heard, and then moving to the next phase of trying to figure out what to do next time. So it is checking in of like, what can we do to make sure that this doesn't continue happening? Maybe it is that there is a reminder on a phone. It could be that somebody else is, maybe that person's being contacted directly instead of it going through the primary owner. Don't know. So once you have all of that conversation and heavy stuff to dig through, then you can move to how you can make this particular issue kind of not happen again. What's going to happen for the future? Now, some of you may be wondering too, if like the other person just isn't listening, it's okay to call a timeout. All right. Now, a suggestion is using the word timeout or a code word that you and the other person have agreed upon together. This may come up more in a romantic relationship or maybe with a family member than it is for a colleague. But maybe in that situation, it's, hey, I need a moment. All right. So you can call timeout, or you can say, I need some time to just process everything and come back to this. So you identify that a break needs to happen. It is good to set a time limit. It could be an hour. It also could just be 5 minutes. Maybe you know that you both have anger issues and you get easily worked up. So maybe it's the next day. But whoever calls the timeout needs to also be the one to re-engage, to have the conversation come up and happen again. All right. So you might have to go back, start using the compassionate communication tools again. That's okay. That is completely fine if that's what needs to happen. But you got to make sure that you come back to addressing whatever the issue is so that you can move forward and not really have to come back to this again. So timeouts are used so each person can calm down and tune into how they are feeling, and then figure out how they can speak from a non-attacking, non-defensive place whenever the timeout is over. So one of the tips that I will give you is actually about like grounding yourself. So that could be used, say, during this timeout if that is necessary. And then also, if it gets to the point where the other person isn't really respecting the timeout, you should call it again, and then you can leave the room. So hopefully that's not the case for anyone, that you have to continuously say this because the other person just keeps coming to like try and talk about it. But if anything, just practice having that timeout come up. So now we will move into 3 tips, confidence boosters. All right, we'll look at practice deep breathing and grounding yourself, and then reminders. All right, so practice makes perfect. Even though you're not putting on a presentation, you are not dancing on stage or giving a you've learned a new skill and you're being tested on it, it's still good to practice. So this can be, so you can think of whatever possible things might come up and you can give answers to it. It can be just to get yourself going, to be like, yeah, I'm focused. I have these things in my head. I know what I want to say. And so I feel better about this. All right. Then there's the deep breathing or grounding work. So when our emotions get heightened, especially if these are negative emotions, we may not be able to focus on what the actual conversation is and what's going on. So one, it's okay if you get overwhelmed. We've seen that having any kind of conflict can be scary and that people tend to avoid it. So this isn't something that is just easy to do. Some people might be better at it than others, but I'm pretty sure it's because they practice this, right? Also, if someone's like yelling and being really aggressive with it, that doesn't mean that they're better at handling conflict. Okay? So just keep in mind it is okay to get overwhelmed, but just keep going. For deep breathing, just keep in mind that you're inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth. So you'll inhale for 8 counts, you'll hold for 8 counts, and then you'll exhale, like getting all of the air out of your lungs, okay? If there are any other deep breathing tools that you use, that is fine. Another one that could be easy for you is like identifying your senses. So maybe it means that you take a second to identify the things that you see, the things that you hear, what you smell, what you feel, what you taste, just to bring you back into the moment. It's very easy to get into a spiral. It's very easy to get into a lot of negative thoughts or, again, worries about what has happened before. But finding ways to just check in with yourself, bring you back to the moment is really, really helpful. And then lastly, remind yourself that your voice is important. You are bringing this up because there's a concern, there's an issue. It's for good reason. This isn't supposed to go perfectly, and so you just have to keep saying, like, what you have to say is important. However it comes out, however this goes, I deserve to be able to give my ideas and fix whatever it is. Let the other person know that I need certain boundaries. You're very important with this. And then also, again, conflict happens. We can't really avoid it. We can avoid it, but is that healthy? Is that helpful for you? Not really, because you don't want to have this continue happening again. Now, some other reminders are that no matter what, you will come out on top. Did you speak up for yourself? Did you get out some ideas of what it is that you wanted to? Great. You could have still been quiet about something, but you didn't. You decided to take some control over your life, over the situation, and you wanted to address it. So be proud of yourself, be kind to yourself. It's all trial and error, especially if you are in a relationship, you both have very different communication styles. You have to figure out how to talk with each other. So a lot of it, I believe, is trial and error. Just keep in mind what happened this time, what went well, maybe what didn't go well. Did you end up like yelling? Okay, well, was it at least a little bit better than other times before? Cool. What worked well with that? How do we continue that going so that you're not maybe yelling as much? Because I'm sure you don't want to do that. If you said something wrong or in a way that you didn't like, apologize. It's okay to get worked up. These are strong feelings. It's okay. So go back later and say, you know, I really did not mean for things to come out that way. Very sorry about that. Let's see. Again, reminder that conflict may be scary, but it's not impossible. We've gotten this far, right? You have a lot of skills and tools that you are working with. You were able to get a job because you were able to show what skills that you had and what you're able to do, what you're capable of. You have accomplished things that maybe other people haven't, or maybe still a lot of people have accomplished it. A lot of people may have gotten a promotion or gone to school, gotten a certificate, but like, you did these things. So keep that in mind, that you are doing well, you're doing your best, and that's all I think people really just need from you. Yeah. So being kind to yourself just throughout this whole process is, I think, the best thing that you can do, because you're not going to get it right. The other person may not respond in a way that you think they will. You may have to come back to the conversation again because of timing. Like, it could really be in the middle of something and the person just happened to show up. Yeah, it may not be the best time to have that conversation. So just making sure that you just keep in mind things are going to be okay. You are going to be okay. And that as long as you keep in mind the things that you want to share and actually share them, that's good. Good for you. Okay. All right. So that is all that I have for today. I hope that this was helpful. I will just see just for a couple of seconds if there's any questions either on Facebook or on Zoom. I do not mind answering them. So while I wait to see if anything comes up, I do want to share with you that, again, I am an empowerment coach, and so that I am accepting new clients. So if you're looking to get more control over your life, control over what you're doing to feel empowered, to feel empowered, I have an empowerment accelerator program. So we're looking at stress management, relationships, confidence, organization, and how to better those skills and have healthier and happier relationships, because I think we all deserve that. It's also very possible. There is some work that has to go into that, but it's very possible for you to have the life that you are looking for. I had a client recently that said that they can show up better in leadership roles. So in their job, lots of confidence. But when it came over to their life, that was a little bit more challenging. And they're like, I want to be a leader of my life. Yeah, I want you to be a leader of your life. So if you find that that is something that you may need to work on, I'm your girl. If there is someone else that you can think about that might need that, send them my way. And consults are free. Just reach out to me at my website. There are ways to contact me through there. Again, it is my name, Taylor Mountain, Taylore Mountain. And check me out on Instagram. My handle is Tailored Living Coaching. So whether it's for you, for somebody else, send them my way and we can get talking. All right. So far, I don't see any questions. I hope I answered questions and met the theme of this particular call of, managing conflicts. And if there's anything afterwards that you can think of, send me an email. If you have my number, send me a text. That always works too. And I guess that is it. It was great talking to you today. Oh, I got a cool, not Bitmoji, an avatar that's clapping for me. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. You all have a great day and a wonderful weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.